The build-up to the second D-Day Britons will endure this century, D for decimalisation, is proof that there's more than one way to mess around with figures. I must confess, Barbara, that I don't understand the decimal coins. Now, I wonder if you could tell me, I mean, that's that one there. That's
the 5.
That's 5p. Now, this one here, this is the 10p one.
Yes, that's twice the 5p one.
And how much is that worth, the 10p one?
Well, that's the equivalent of our 2-shilling piece now.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about, have you got any more down here, or are they all the same, basically?
No,
A number of retailers decided that they would go in for other little gimmicks, like having girls scantily dressed, wandering around with semblances of coins on them and so on, and this all helped.
Decimal dollies, as they came to be known, shimmied and shivered up and down high streets in the middle of winter, and the media loved them. But for housewives, things were different.
There was a division in 1970, I suppose, in people's minds between the dolly bird and the housewife, and there wasn't much in between. And that's the way it got reflected in the decimal currency campaign. We didn't really do any research on what said housewife might think or feel or what. It was just kind of odd.
When you are given change in new money, it may sound rather odd. So if you're puzzled by 31.5, 32, 33, 35, 40, and 10 is 50, and 50 is a pound, think decimal.
The new decimal money will be with us on D-Day, Decimal Day, the 15th of February, 1971.
Now some people who were feeling very bright have put their heads together just to make things right. They have made it easy for every citizen, because all we have to do is count from 1 to 10.
On the 1st of January 1971, the Decimal Currency Board launched the biggest advertising campaign the country had seen. There were no cartoons, no gimmicks, just the blunt message: Britain had 6 weeks to learn how to think decimal. School children were drafted in to show old-age pensioners that using decimals was easy.
Hello, my name's Anne. I've come to tell you about the new decimal currency.
Research showed that elderly people were scared of the changeover. One pensioners' organisation announced that decimalisation was worse than pornography.
One old lady apparently said, "Why don't you wait till we all die off and then do the change, you know?"
Hello, my old darling.
Hello.
How are you today? All alone, I see. Oh, what do the neighbours think? And where were you lot on Saturday? On the razzle-dazzle? Well,
Granny Gets the Point was aimed at helping old people overcome their fears.
There's a love. Now, it's stand by with your slide rules and ready reckoners, because from today we're decimal only.
Oh.
So let's see now.
Huge demand from pensioners' organisations made it the most popular government information film ever made.
Simple, really, isn't it? But some of them, you know, they got no idea. One old duck told me she'd been saving her pennies for months because she thought that from today they'd be worth 2.5 each. Can you believe it?
If the national press was to be believed, Granny's distress was shared by the rest of the country.
Don't worry, Mrs. Mortimer. You ain't the only one.
There was a lot of coverage in the press about the amount that people didn't know. And there was some suggestion that the preparations had gone wrong and that there would be a disaster on D-Day. But we were fairly secure because it had always been planned to wait until the last moment to do the publicity for the ordinary shopper.
This is the new 2-penny piece. Now, what is this worth in present money? Do you know?
No.
This is the 1-penny piece. Do you know what that is worth?
Tuppence.
Tuppence?
No.
I'm afraid not. No. One new pence is 2.4 on the old pence. What about this? That's
No idea.
The new halfpenny. What's that worth? At present money?
Tuppence.
No.
No.
1.2 pence. What about the decimal currency? Are you looking forward to its introduction?
No, not at all. No.
On the Wednesday before D-Day, the final push was on. Operation Checkpoint was a 4-day campaign designed to clear a record 12 million cheques and to change every single British bank account from LSD to decimal. At the same time, stores changed prices and tills and stocked up on the 4,000 million new copper coins that would come into circulation on D-Day in 4 days' time.
I suppose it's like going into bat in a test match or something. You can never be sure that things will be all right. But inevitably there was slight feeling, well, you know, is there something we've not thought of?
LSD is dead and gone. Today is D-Day -1. LSD is dead and gone. Today is D-Day -1.
With 12 hours to go, Moore took a final chance to calm the nation's nerves on the BBC's D-Day -1.
That decimal currency is a matter of practice, not theory. And when we've done a few shopping transactions with shop assistants who've been specially trained to help us, we'll wonder what all the fuss was about.
For Noel Moore, the next 24 hours would be the greatest test of his civil service career.
I think the housewife will get used to it in about 6 weeks.
Don't know nothing about it.
Well, I think it's absolutely rubbish.
Now then, if I give you a 50p piece, my change ought
On
to
D-Day itself, like the folks on the street, the nation thought decimal.
15.5p.
Yeah, very good, top of the class.
By gum, there's no flies on you two, is there?
Doesn't have to be. Money doesn't come easy to us like it does to some folk I could mention.
All came in, our faces shining and well scrubbed in our best suits and ties, and sat there waiting for the phones to ring on that Tuesday, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. It was the weirdest feeling in the world. You know, you're sitting there expecting the phone. It's like giving a party, and really nobody turning up.
31 new pence.
To everyone's surprise, it was business as usual, more or less.
I thought we were going to get in a real flurry, you know. My stomach was going over this morning, but, you know, it worked out very well.
How are you getting on with the new currency this morning?
Not at all. This is the first time, and we're frightened.
Why are you frightened?
I just asked her how much that is in English. She said 13 new pence.
In English. How much is 13 new pence?
I don't know.
Mum's clearly watching to see how it worked, because Mum wanted to monitor the extent to which people had real problems. But in the event they didn't.
I well remember, I think it was on D-Day, members of the board staff sitting around in the room where we had a television, and we'd seen the early news or something, and we found ourselves watching the magic roundabout. Somehow there was nothing else to do. You know, it was over. We'd finished. 7.5 years of my life had disappeared. It wasn't a big event. It wasn't like the other D-Day.
If anyone had a bad D-Day, it was the press, who scraped the bottom of the barrel for a story.
Mr. Phillips, what happened this morning?
Well, my daughter came across to me and she said that she swallowed a coin. I said, what kind of coin? She said, a new 2p coin.
Well, when she went to the hospital, what did they say to her?
Well, the receptions were kind of, because it was D-Day, we thought something a bit funny. And we thought they were trying to be funny with us, you know, first off.
Good heavens. What an extraordinary big deal, you know. How amazing that you can change a country's entire currency, and the biggest story is about some mother swallowing a coin.
But it was the calm before the storm. It took a few days, but the tabloids finally found the story they'd been looking for. The nation was being diddled. Newspapers claimed that when LSD prices were being converted to decimal prices, they were being rounded up rather than rounded down.
I'll tell you something, and since they've done this decimal system, mate, since they've rounded the figures up, we're all swindled. It's a swindle.
Nonsense. Yeah, it's not, he's quite right. Look at that. Portion of beans, 4p's. Now, last week, that was 8pence. Now, that should be 3.5p's.
He's right, you know. They've even stuck half a p on the beans.
Soon there was a war on diddling. Fleet Street tabloids created decimal watchdogs to sniff out the cheats. The Decimal Currency Board distributed shoppers' tables by the tens of millions. They gave the closest old to new conversion on all figures up to £1. But despite all this, people were convinced that life after D-Day was more expensive.
I don't know what's going on in this country. Anything to put the prices up, that's what it is. See that up there? Cup of tea, 7pence. 7pence. Now, 7pence should be 2 3/4 p's. But is it? Since they've rounded it up to 7pence, now becomes 3p's.
You do talk a lot of nonsense. How can a canteen operate on quarter p's? There's no such thing.
Well, I don't see why. We've got split peas.
I can't think why people should believe that decimalisation was a source of inflation. It patently wasn't. If you look at the figures in terms of increases in the cost of living index, or whatever it was called at the time, the index for February and March of 71 was, if anything, smaller than it had been for a long time before and some time later. The price of things increases. This is one of the great lessons of history.
Well, since decimalisation in the spring, have you noticed much difference in the cost of living?
Yes, definitely. Practically doubled what it was.
Well, I definitely think that they put on the extra pennies.
How much difference does it make to you as a housewife?
Quite a lot. I was thinking it makes about £1 a week difference.
Do you think the shopkeepers are at fault?
Well, I don't know. I expect they'll be millionaires by the time they finish.
Research carried out at the time concluded that there had been no increase in the price of everyday goods. But the belief that decimalisation caused inflation was widespread and remarkably long-lived.
Because the currency had been confused, the nation were being confused, the nation were being conned. And where you go today, when you look around at the prices they are today, they are still spiralling. And if you took that whole of inflation right the way back, you can spiral it right back to the day that decimalisation came in.
Down in Shoreham, where Paul Plum's shop used to be, you can now buy tiramisu and cappuccinos. It's a far cry from the days when Plum became notorious for his refusal to accept the new money. But despite his fierce opposition, it seemed Britain had moved on after all.
I would have thought the change had gone pretty smoothly. Most customers had now got the hang of decimal currency.
This is typically British. This is what everybody thinks, that it's going very smoothly, but it jolly well isn't going smoothly. The average person just doesn't know, they don't know where they are about it, and they're saying, oh, well, up to the present moment, they've been saying perhaps it'll get easier, but it won't, it'll worsen.
In this whole project, you have one shopkeeper, Paul Plum, who is, I suppose, remembered to this day as the shopkeeper who didn't change. If that had taken off at all, there would have been Paul Plums all over Britain. They just weren't. And I think that is the most amazing thing. There was only one Plum.
Have you yet had a specific case of a customer saying to you, thank heavens, Mr. Plum, you've gone back to LS if not to LSD?
A specific case? This morning here, we've had dozens of customers coming in and saying, all strength to your elbow, aren't we glad about this? And from a town here, right when you're 6 miles away, we had a lady saying...
Plum maintained his lone stand against the decimals for 2 long years, but resistance was futile.
It was rather like the tide coming in. The tide gradually came up, and didn't matter how much Canute put his feet out, the tide came over him, didn't it? And so we went on. But you know, I can honestly tell you that even today, I'm not really used to it after all these years.
Seedless tangerines, 2 6 each, ladies. Come on, ladies, 2 6 each a bit of seedless tangerine. 10 shillings a pound seedless grape. Come on, 10 shillings a pound bit of seedless. 6 shillings a pound bananas, ladies. Come on, 6 shillings a pound. 12 shillings to you, sweetheart.
12 shillings, that's 70p. 12 shillings. Christ, it's been so long now.
6 shillings a pound.
6 shillings? Oh, that's a lot.
Don't you remember that?
Yeah, I remember. Of course I do remember it more than you do.
37.5 new pence.
Yeah.
What's that in old money?
37.5 new pence would be 50 pence.
Like 7 and something, wasn't it? It's 7 and 70 or something like that.
And the banana's 6 shillings a pound. That's quite a lot of money, isn't it?
I'll have some of
And that's 10 shillings a pound.
Yeah, I can see that, yeah. Like in good old days, isn't it?
I think we're curious folk in England. We really resist change. And we sort of love nostalgia. We like our nostalgia. There are still people today who would be nostalgic for the old currency, although they couldn't count in it. But then, you know, in practice, we actually accept change rather readily.
I really had forgotten how to convert. It's stupid. Really? I mean, how long is it? 1950 something, wasn't it? The decimalisation come in?
1968, 69, 70?
71.
1971 that was.
That's 30 years ago nearly, isn't it?
And you can find out more about funny money by logging on to channel4.com/next step. Now, when a journalist tries to sniff out a juicy crime story, her probing nose gets in the way of police business. NYPD Blue is next here on 4.